Welcome to Storytime. If you remember, last time we started this book called Little Eddie, and it's written by Carolyn Haywood. And if you remember, in the first chapter, Eddie's father had gotten, I think, a new desk, and so he was going to get rid of his old desk. And all of his brothers and Eddie, they all wanted the desk. So his dad had said, whoever gets me the most wood, because he was having a hard time finding wood for their fires, whoever gets me the most wood can have the desk. And do you remember what Eddie did? He got the workers to haul the old telegraph pole, which is kind of like a telephone pole, to his front yard. And so he got the desk. The next chapter is called Eddie and His Cats. One day, Eddie stopped at the fish market on his way home from school. When Mr. Henderson, the owner of the fish market, saw Eddie come in the door, he said, "Hello, Eddie. What do you want? Fish heads, I'll bet." "Yepper," replied Eddie. "You should see the swell cat I have now. She's the biggest cat you ever saw, and a tortoise shell." "Where do you keep all of the cats you bring home with you?" asked Mr. Henderson. "Oh, I have a nice little pen for them," said Eddie. "My mother won't let me keep them in the house." Here's a little picture of one of his cats. Apparently, he has lots of cats. So he goes to the pet store or the fish market to get fish heads to feed to his cats. "I should think not," said Mr. Henderson. "Don't the cats ever fight?" "No," replied Eddie, "they never fight." Mr. Henderson wrapped some fish heads in a newspaper, and Eddie started for home. He hadn't gone far when he came upon a cat. The cat came near Eddie and sniffed. One sniff was enough. The cat ran right along with Eddie. About a block away from his home, Eddie looked down, and there was another cat scurrying along beside him. "Good thing Mr. Henderson gave me a lot of fish heads," Eddie thought to himself. Why do you think the cats are following Eddie? It said one sniff was enough. They smell the fish heads that he has. There's a picture of him, and oh my, how many? 3 cats following him now? Oh boy. At his own front gate, Eddie found still another cat. It joined right up with the others. As they followed Eddie around to the back of the house, Eddie thought, "I never had 4 cats before. This is wonderful." But he also thought that he had better not say anything about them to his family. Eddie put the 3 cats into the pen with the big tortoiseshell cat. He emptied the paper of fish heads into the pen, and the cats fell upon them. "Eddie," his mother called out, and Eddie passed around the stairs. "You smell of fish. Go and wash your hands. I'm going to get rid of that cat, and I don't want you to bring any more cats home with you." "They don't hurt anything, Mama, and I keep them in the pen," said Eddie. "Well, they keep you smelling of fish," said his mother, "and it's awful." Eddie went off to wash his hands. In the middle of the night, Eddie was awakened by a horrible noise. He knew at once what it was. The cats were screeching and wailing. He heard his father's footsteps in the hall. Then he heard a window open, then a splash. He knew that his father had thrown a basin of water out of the window on the cats. "Meow," said a cat, and then all was silent. A few minutes later, Eddie fell asleep, feeling very sorry for his cats. The following morning, when Eddie appeared at breakfast, his father said, "Now see here, Eddie, I want you to get rid of those cats, and I want you to get rid of them today. Do you understand?" "But can't I keep the tortoise shell?" asked Eddie. I think by tortoise shell he means the pattern on the cat's fur kind of looked like a tortoise shell. "You may not keep the tortoise shell or any other cat," said Mr. Wilson. "We are through with cats." "Yes, sir," replied Eddie, looking very unhappy. "What shall I do with them?" Eddie asked. "I don't know," replied his father. "You brought them here, so you will have to get rid of them." It was Saturday, so Eddie had the day to get rid of the cats. He found a large wooden box in the garage and put the 4 cats into the box. Then he put the box in his express wagon and started off. He had no idea what he would do with the cats. He trundled his express wagon along for several blocks until he met a little boy about his own age. "Would you like to have a cat?" Eddie asked. "Sure," replied the boy. "Well, I'll give you one," said Eddie. "They're in my wagon. Which one do you want?" The little boy looked them over carefully, and then he said, "I would like the black and white one." "Okay," said Eddie, as he picked up the black and white cat and handed it to the boy. "Thanks," said the boy. "What's its name?" "I don't know," said Eddie, smoothing the cat's back. Eddie looked at the cat most lovingly. Then he said, "Patches would be a good name, 'cause it's black and white, and it looks just like Patches." "Say, it does, doesn't it?" said the boy. "I guess I'll call it Patches." Eddie trundled off with his wagon and the 3 remaining cats. This kind of is like our subtraction, right? He had 4 cats, and he sold 1 cat, so now he has 3 cats. He hadn't gone far when he came upon a man who was repairing his front step. Eddie stopped in front of the man. "Would you like to have a nice cat?" asked Eddie. "Don't want any cats," said the man. "My father won't let me keep them," said Eddie in a very sorrowful voice, "and they are awfully nice cats." "Don't want any, thank you," said the man. "My father won't let me give them anything to eat," said Eddie. "Don't want any," said the man. "And last night my father threw water on them," said Eddie. "Don't want any," said the man. "But it would only be 1, said Eddie. "Don't want any," said the man. "It doesn't cost much to feed 1 cat, said Eddie. "It doesn't cost anything if you get fish heads from the fish market." "Don't want any," said the man. "Oh dear," said Eddie, "how would you feel if you were a nice cat and nobody wanted you?" "Okay," said the man. "You win, brother. Put the cat down and get out of here." "Which one do you want?" asked Eddie. "I don't care," replied the man without looking up. "Cats are cats. They're all alike to me." Eddie lifted the big tortoise-shell cat out of the box and set her down beside the man. "She's the prettiest cat I ever saw," said Eddie, "and the biggest too. I think you'll like her." The man grunted, and Eddie and his wagon rattled off with the other, how many cats? If he had 3 and he gave 1 away, now he has 2 cats. At the next corner he met Billy Porter. "Hi, Bill," Eddie shouted. "Want a nice cat?" Billy looked into the box. "What's the matter with them?" he asked. "Nothing is the matter with them," replied Eddie. "Well then, why are you giving them away?" asked Billy. "Pop won't let me keep them," said Eddie. "Why not?" said Billy. "Oh, he doesn't 'preciate cats," replied Eddie, picking up the 2 cats. "Which one do you want?" "Don't want any," said Billy. "My father doesn't 'preciate cats either." "Ah, come on," said Eddie. "Couldn't you just take 1? "Well," said Billy, "I'll see. Give me the gray one with the white paws. He's pretty." Eddie handed over the gray cat with the white paws. "You won't be sorry," said Eddie. "He's a nice cat." "Well," said Billy, "I don't know whether my father will let me keep him." "So long," said Eddie, as he rattled away with the 1 remaining cat. At the next corner, Eddie met Kenny Roberts. "Hey, Ken," Eddie called out, "would you like to have a nice cat?" "No thanks," said Kenny. "We already have 2 cats." "Oh," said Eddie, and he went on until he reached Betsy's house. There he rang the bell. Lucy, the maid, opened the door. When she saw Eddie, she said, "Betsy isn't home, Eddie." "Oh," said Eddie. "Well, how would you like to have a nice cat?" "I wouldn't like it," said Lucy. "We already have a cat, and it's 1 too many, if you're asking me." "But this is a real nice cat," said Eddie. "I don't care what kind of a cat it is," said Lucy. "We don't want it." Eddie turned away, but before Lucy had closed the door, he turned back and said, "Maybe someday you'll be sorry you didn't take this cat." "That's one thing I'm sure I'll never be sorry about," replied Lucy, and she closed the door. Then she opened it again. "And don't you leave that cat on our front step," she called. Eddie hadn't thought of leaving the cat on anyone's front step, but now that Lucy had mentioned it, he wondered why he hadn't thought of it before. He trotted right around the block to Mrs. Jackson's house and put the cat on her front porch. While the cat was exploring the porch, Eddie walked away. But he hadn't gotten to the front gate when Clementine, Mrs. Jackson's cook, called out, "Eddie Wilson, you come right back here and get that cat you just put on our front porch. Mrs. Jackson, she don't want any cats around here." "Aw, come on," said Eddie. "Lily Bell would like it." Lily Bell was Clementine's little girl. "I know Lily Bell would like to have a cat." "No, indeed," said Clementine. "Lily Bell can't have a cat. Those cat hairs go down little Lily Bell's throat and give her croup." "Oh, man," cried Eddie. "What am I going to do with it?" "I don't know," said Clementine, "but you can't leave it here." Eddie went back and picked up the cat. He put it in the box and started off again. About 2 blocks further on, he met Ellen. "Oh, Ellen," he sang out, "how would you like to have a nice cat?" "I don't think so," said Ellen. "Well, just try it overnight," said Eddie. "I think you'll like it if you try it." "Oh, I would like it all right," said Ellen, "but I don't think my family would." "Just try it," said Eddie. "Just try it overnight." Ellen took the cat. "All right," she said, "but I don't think they'll like it." Here's a picture of him giving the cat to Ellen. Now that Eddie no longer had the cats, he ran all of the way home with the express wagon rattling along behind him. He rattled through the front gate and up the front path. Suddenly he stopped. He dropped the handle of the wagon and it fell on the path with a heavy thud. Eddie stood staring at the doorstep. He could hardly believe his eyes, for there sat the great big tortoiseshell cat and the black and white cat. They were both busy licking themselves. "Well, I'll be!" exclaimed Eddie. "How did you get here?" The cats went on calmly licking. Here's a picture of him sitting on his wagon, looking at the cats. They came back. Just then Eddie looked up the street. He saw Billy Porter coming down the street with a cat in his arms. Before Billy opened his mouth, Eddie knew what was coming. So he was not surprised when Billy called out, "Didn't I tell you? My father doesn't appreciate cats." Billy placed the cat back in the box and said, "So long, Eddie. I have to get right back home." "So long," said Eddie in a not very cheerful voice. While Eddie sat in his wagon looking at the cats, Ellen arrived. "I'm sorry, Eddie," she said, "but my family won't let me keep this cat." "Not even overnight?" wailed Eddie. "No," replied Ellen. And she placed the cat in the box. "I have to run home," she said. "I have to mind the baby. Goodbye." You know what it means to mind the baby? She needed to take care of the baby. "Bye," said Eddie. "I sure think I have a hard life." And Eddie began to wonder whether he was as fond of cats as he had thought. So now he has to try again to get rid of the cats. The next chapter is called Cats Are All Right, But... So we'll have to see how is he going to get rid of the cats this time.